Record. Hi, everyone. I have a special guest with me today, Patricia Sands. She's here with us. And hi, Patricia.
Hi, glad to be here.
Yes, glad to finally meet you. I read her book, I reviewed it, and now I have her on my show. Who is she? Who is Patricia Sands? Let's see. She is here and she's talking about her book titled A New Leash, A New Lease on
Oh,
Life.
a new
See?
leash.
Leash on Life. There it is. And she's an international best-selling author who lives in Toronto, Canada. Big welcome to Patricia Sands. Tell us about your book, please.
Thank you. Thank
Show us
you.
again. I want to see it again, please. I loved it. Yes, look at that dog. Oh, the dogs are so cute.
They're
Tell us
so
a
cute.
little about your book, this series.
And it was so much fun to write the story. You know, this is a series of 9 books. As the first one is free, and the first book contains the prologues of all the rest of the series. So you can read a little bit about each of the books before you decide whether you want to order it or not. And it's about a litter of yellow Labrador retrievers and what happens to each pup as they're taken, a litter of 8 puppies, and the story that goes along with each puppy as it goes to its new owner. So the stories are all really different, and I've read them all, and they're all great. And mine was great fun to write. I decided that the pup was going to go home to a woman who didn't want to have a dog, but her son had purchased one of the puppies from the breeder and then was sent to Australia by his company for 3 months. So he called his mom and said, "Mom, could you help?" And of course, once the grandchildren asked if she could help, there was no refusing.
Oh,
So she picks up the puppy and takes it home to her house where she has two 10-year-old cats who rule her life. And they're not too thrilled to see this cute little puppy come into the house. So there has to be a little period of adjustment there where they decide whether they're going to be friends or not. And I've always had cats and dogs. I know that cats and dogs can get along very well. It wasn't something that I was unfamiliar with. And so this puppy comes, and it turns out he has to stay a little longer because her son's contract is extended in Australia. And so the story continues with what this little pup gets into along the way. And the woman names him Chance, and she's a widow. She decides to call him Chance because she feels he's giving her a chance at a change in her life. Her husband has had to, I said she was a widow, but that's not right. She's not a widow. Her husband is still alive, but he's had to go into full-time care. And which actually becomes a really important part of the story because once Chance gets over his sort of, uncontrollable puppy stage, she takes him to the seniors residence to visit her husband. And as it turns out, to visit with all the other residents there because they all line the hallway and are so excited when this puppy comes in that he has to visit with everybody. And that actually plays into something that happens at the very end of the story. I don't know whether you want me to give a spoiler or to tell what happens.
it's up to you. It's your book. It's
Well,
up to
lots of things happen in between, but at the end, Chance does become a therapy dog, and so that was very satisfying to write about. And one of the other aspects of this story that I really enjoyed, and I didn't know it was going to happen, of course, until I got writing, because that's how it is with those of us who are pantsers and don't plot our stories and just let our story evolve as we go along. The two characters that come into the story later the grandmother and her little 6-year-old Rosie granddaughter are delightful characters who become a very important part of the story. But I didn't know that I was going to be writing those characters when I started. So, that's part of the fun of writing fiction is how your stories evolve sometimes, where something begins to happen and then you just keep working with it and it becomes a really important part of your story, even though you didn't know at the beginning that it would be.
Are you
So, yeah,
are you a dog owner yourself?
well, I'm not anymore because, my husband and I traveled so much that we did when I first married my husband, it was my second marriage. I was widowed before that. And when I remarried, I had a Wheaten Terrier. And so she came along with me into the marriage. And my stepchildren adored her, just like my children did. But after she passed, it just happened that as our lives were evolving, my husband and I were doing a lot of long-term traveling. So it wasn't really a good idea to have a dog. So I have a grandpup who lives 20 minutes away. She's now 5, and I sometimes post pictures of her that everybody loves. She's a 5-year-old golden doodle, Georgia, and she owns me.
Oh,
I
yeah.
adore her, and I'm happy to say she adores me too. Probably because she always knows I'll have treats in my right-hand pocket when I arrive. But my kids tell me they can say to her, Georgia, Nana's coming. And she roars down and sits right by the front door until I get there.
You have a photo?
And
You have a
when
photo?
she was much younger
Yeah.
and, a little naughty sometimes, she'd get loose in the backyard and roar around. She wouldn't go far, but she'd roar around and visit all the neighbors. And the only way they could get her to come back home was if they told her that I was coming. They'd say, Georgia, Nana's coming or Nana's here. And she'd come right home.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Where did you get the idea for this series? It's 9 books, right? This is book number 9, right? The end of
Yeah,
the series. The end of the series. No,
yeah.
no.
Actually, the series really was the brainchild of Kay Bratt, who you may know. She's a wonderful author, very prolific, and Tammy Grace, who also is a fabulous author and writes a lot of books with dogs as the main character. And so it was their idea, and I was delighted to be invited to join the group. 2 years ago, they had a similar idea, and I wrote a book for that series too. And that series was called the Sail Away series.
Yes.
And those books were all, each one was about something that happened on a different cruise. And so my cruise was in the Mediterranean, of course. So it could, sorry, I'm getting dinged here. Um,
Put on Do Not Disturb.
so that
Yeah.
I just want to turn my phone off.
That's
Uh,
better.
yes, so each book was written about a cruise on it somewhere in the Caribbean, and somewhere it went to Alaska, and some went there we go, to Panama, and mine went to the Mediterranean.
Mm.
And that was fun to write too. So it's although of course, closest to my heart are my books set in Provence, but it really is fun to branch out and write something totally on a different subject every once in a while.
Yeah.
So so I loved writing this book, and I'm happy to give away one today. If you want to pick a winner later from people who comment on our chat,
Yes.
just
Yeah.
let me know and I'll send a signed print copy to somebody.
Well, who will be the lucky winner? Guys, you got to comment because I'm telling you, you will fall in love with this book. If you're a dog owner, for sure. And even if you're not, the writing is amazing. Oh, bro.
Thanks.
It was sad and happy all together. So many emotions were flowing when I read this book. I really loved it.
Uh,
Thank
yeah.
you for the book. Thank you. I have another question for you. The crisis that occurs brings two new characters into the story. How do they come into your imagination, and how important are they?
Well, as I said, that I mentioned these two characters. One is a grandmother and her 6-year-old granddaughter, Rosie. And they were very important um, because, something quite shocking had happened to the pup. And as that part of the mystery and the story unfolded, these two characters came into the story. And I thought Rosie was just a delightful little girl. She asked great questions, and Libby, the protagonist, was a retired librarian, and so it turned out that Rosie had never been in a library. She didn't really know what a library was. And so, again, as a writer, that part of the story was really fun for me to write as Libby took Rosie to a library and got her a library card, and Rosie's eyes just bugged open as she looked at all those books, and she said, "You mean they're free? I can take some home?" And yeah, it was a very exciting adventure for her. And so that was really fun to write. And her grandmother became, I mean, our characters as we write them, depending on their personalities, of course. Um, I mean, if we're writing thrillers and we're talking about serial murderers, they may not become so close to our hearts, but in a happy story, as we write characters, they do become real to us. And uh, it's really very pleasing to develop those characters as the story goes along and to see what happens with them. And I thought they were really a lovely addition to the new chapter in Libby's life, really, because everything kind of happened at once, She her husband had to move out of the home, and then she had to take this dog in, and then other things happened, and then she met these new characters, and there was a lot going on, and it was uh, it was really fun to develop those characters and bring them along in the story and see how it all ended up for everybody.
Now, how did you get that idea to write about a therapy dog? I mean, is your story based on anything you know, any characters that you know about? Is it realistic?
Well, no, it's not based on anything that happened in my life,
Okay.
apart from owning pets through the years and loving cats and dogs. Um, but and the parrot that's in the story, that parrot actually was based on a parrot that my next door neighbor, we had a house in Florida for many years where we would winter. And our next door neighbor there had a parrot, and this parrot Einstein is kind of based on that, on her parrot, because that parrot was hilarious and it did bark just like a dog. And she had a dog as well, and the parrot would give the dog, or like the parrot would say to the dog, sit, lie down, stop barking. So yeah, it was
That
fun.
could be pretty cool. Pretty cool. So, how did you get eight characters to come together, to work together, to put together such a delightful series? How did that happen?
Well,
So,
in each of the books, the characters are very different, but and the only thing that we were sort of directed about at the beginning was that we all were to live in this town, uh, Dragonfly Cove, and then there were certain locations within the town, businesses and coffee shops, that had already been set up so that we knew we could write about those in our stories. And then we kind of talked to each other and said, okay, well, maybe maybe my character will meet your character at the bookstore and have a conversation. And as you know, my character did become very close to the woman who owned the bookstore. And so that's fun to weave those things into the story and yet keep our stories all very individual. And the ending of mine, the epilogue, was actually written by Kay Bratt because Leslie, that character, was Kay's main character in her book. So she was more invested in that character than the rest of us. And apparently, not apparently, I know that character is mentioned in every book. So every reader gets to know that there's something going on with this character, but they don't know exactly what or how it ends. And you have to get to the end of my book to find out how Leslie's adventure comes to a conclusion, a happy conclusion.
Okay, so let's get this straight. There are 9 books in the series. And what's the name of the series? And 8 authors
Right.
in the series that came together.
Yes.
So, how many books did you write in the series exactly? And was it each author writing one book?
Yes. Each author wrote one.
That's right.
So 8 of us. And then the first book has the prologues of all 8 books in it. And I think we also contributed a chapter. So you can, and it's free. So you can go on Amazon, order that book for free, and get an idea of the stories in the other 8 books
Interesting.
and
Now,
decide if you
where can
wanted
I
to.
purchase your book and all the books? Amazon, anywhere else?
At the moment, they're only on Amazon.
Oh,
They will be on some other sales platforms later, but right now we're committed to having them on Amazon.
interesting, interesting. And where can we reach you also? I don't want to run out of time later, so I get in right away. If we want to reach you,
Sure.
where can we find you?
You can find me everywhere. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. Those are the 2 main ones. I have a website, patriciasandsauthor.com. And I actually don't live in Toronto anymore. I live 2 hours north of Toronto. When COVID started to kick in, my husband and I moved up to Collingwood, Ontario, which is 2 hours north of Toronto. It's a ski town in the winter, and in the summer, it's a very busy tourist area. We're right on Georgian Bay. It's a beautiful area, and we used to have a winter place up here. So we decided that we didn't want to be locked down in a big city. We would rather be locked down up here, and we've never regretted it. It was really a great move. Toronto is a lovely city. I enjoyed living there for decades, but I'm very, very happy to be up here.
That's wonderful. Now tell me, please, do you have any other books or series in the works?
Well, not in the works series at the moment, but I do have a new book that I'm working on, and it is set in France, and I hope to have it out by the holidays. I hope to publish it around the end of November.
Oh,
So
books.
sorry.
You've written other books involving the country of France. What were they?
Well, yes, I have let's see, 8 books. The first 3 are the Love in Provence trilogy, which starts off with a 55-year-old woman in Toronto who suddenly becomes single, doesn't have any children, and she goes to France. She's convinced by some of her friends to go to France and do a home exchange, to do something different, step out of her comfort zone. And so she does a home exchange at a 200-year-old farmhouse in the countryside of Provence.
Hmm.
And her life changes. And so that evolved into, that was the second book that I wrote after the Bridge Club. And I would hear from readers, well, what happened? Did she stay in France? Something exciting happened at the end. How did that go? So I ended up writing two more books in that series. And then again, talking about people becoming engaged with characters, a lot of readers really enjoyed the other characters that I had written into the series and wanted to know about them. One of them is a woman in her 90s who everyone loved.
Wow.
And so that evolved into a four-book series, the Villa de Violette series.
Ooh.
And all of those books are on my website, of course, and on in Amazon.
Hmm.
And I also wrote a standalone called Drawing Lessons, which is set in another part of the south of France. And another book, The Secrets We Hide, which doesn't start in France. It actually starts in Hawaii, but it ends in France. So yeah, I have this thing about having my books set in France. It's the part of the world where I've spent a lot of time, that my heart lives there. And so I do love to write stories that are set there. So the new one that I'm working on is actually set in Montmartre in Paris, and I'm very excited about it. But I'm just getting into it, so I've really got a lot of work to do.
I must tell you, I love your writing. Where can we find your other books? I hear so much about the Bridge Club everywhere online. I see the Bridge Club. It was one of your most popular books, I think. Everyone's talking about it. I've never read it, but I have to find it. I have to get it. Where are your other books? I love
Well, I mean, everything is on Amazon.
everything.
And my digital books are also on Kobo. Most of them are in Barnes and Noble. Uh, you can easily find them.
Okay.
And The Bridge Club was my very first book. And it is actually about my real life bridge club, that women in my life that we've been friends since we were in our late teens, early 20s.
Oh,
And it goes through all the decades of stuff that happened and to each of us. And yeah, a lot of people really love it. It's a good book club book.
I hope
And
I get to read it and book some more with Jewish ladies. If you haven't read The Bridge Club, it's very popular. You should read that one too. Of course, the book we're talking about from the series, obviously, we should read that too, and the whole series. But she is a fantastic author. I mean, I'm already hooked on your other books, which I didn't read just from your description. So
well,
I
I hope you
know
will
that.
read them. I think you'll
Must
enjoy
check them.
them.
I must check them out. Thank you so much for coming on my show. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you and reading your book. And I'm definitely going to read more of your books, definitely. Uh,
Okay, I'll just hold it up here one more time.
yes, A New Leash on life. Look at those cute dogs. Aren't they adorable? And I have a grandpup named Rosie,
Oh,
who I love, who's turning 2 next month, March 12th.
oh
So
my goodness. What breed is she?
Pomeranian,
Oh my goodness. They're,
adorable.
they are adorable.
We love her
And
to death.
does she live close by?
Yes, 15 minutes away. Not far at all. Yeah. We
Perfect.
see her every weekend, if not
Yeah,
more. Okay, thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you so much for coming on my show. We'll
you're
talk
welcome.
soon. Keep in touch, ladies and gentlemen. Comment, buy her book, buy her books, and
You
maybe
may win a
someone
free
will win.
copy.
Maybe if you comment, you win a nice copy of her book. Thank you so much. And we're going to sign off now. Boy, it's sunny in my room here. I'm flying this time.
Thanks, Sylvia. It was lots of fun talking to you.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye now, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
We'll talk soon, hopefully. Bye.